words, you want words and writing on air.
Writing on Air from East Leeds FM.
Regional competition.
Hello to our radio audiences on East Leeds FM. You're listening to the Writing on Air Festival 2021, actually part 2 of 2021. So this is the first day of the 3-day Writing on Air Festival, and we've got lots more programs going out over the radio later this evening, and actually not lots more this evening, lots more the next 2 days though. So this is actually the last broadcast of the day, the Great Debate. And it's going to be an interactive discussion about the possibilities of using the space that our studio audience is in as a place to try to have different kinds of debates, discussions about the futures of our community and our country, our world, and so forth. But before that, we're going to be having a couple of songs, a few songs from one of our illustrious radio hosts, Danetta D3, who's the host of the East Leeds FM show Loudspeaker, but also an activist, a writer, spoken word artist, a maker of, someone who makes things happen. So we'll go right to D3 and then into the Great Debate experimental project. All right, here's this round of applause for D3.
Hello, good evening, thank you. This first piece I'm going to do today is called The Edge. On the edge of sanity, fingers tightly wrapped around the last straw, clinging to hope of a new day, but tomorrow never comes. Her mind is a storm navigating through the mist of confusion. She has visited here before, despair, but can never remember the way back. No street signs, no breadcrumbs, no friendly face to offer direction. Alone. Wandering in space where there is no sound. Only her heartbeat tapping out a rhythm. Da-da, 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 da-da. She is attached to the life within, forcing her feet to take the next step. The edge is a tightrope, commanding attention with each step. But her thoughts drain through her mind like a sieve, creating a pool of uncertainty. Thank you. Bang, an explosion that just can't be contained. The dice is rolled. Apparently I'm playing the game. Concept is sit down and open your veins. Let people prod us to be positive. You're feeling the pain. So they open up my head and walk around my brain. Even though it was found clean, now it's covered in stains. Drop me naked, trembling in the pouring rain. Slap my face and tell me that I gotta play again. After wondering what all this was supposed to gain. This insane operation is inhumane. Only to be informed, this is just a common complaint. They smiled like they were sitting being entertained, saying now the procedure is preordained, like little links connected on a messed up chain. Don't beat around the bush, cause the message is plain. You're no longer the master of your own domain. like a hairline fracture growing over time, separating all the segments of my mind. Reduce me to an inch and give me mountains to climb. I try to break free, but it seems that I'm confined in a world of space and rhyme. I find my body filled with strength and weakness combined. I'm falling uncontrollably as my faith declines, but my feet keep moving 'cause my love is blind. So I muster all the faith and logic I can find, 'cause I'm dealing with the world's most unrefined. I'm sure you know the kind, always on your spine, creeping up on unsuspected souls from behind, moving in slow motion now that papers are signed, and I can't fast forward or press rewind, feeling my way in the dark, light no longer shines, but you can walk away with something I consider mine. Because my love is blind. 'Cause my love is blind, I'll do anything for you. You push me further away, you push me further and further away. Because my love is blind, I'll still do anything for you. You push me further away, you push me further and further away. So I shrug off the shame and find the strength to carry on. I'm sick of playing your game, I'm doing it my way. So I got myself an army 'cause I'm ready to fight. I'm calling anybody interested to help in my fight. I'm concentrating information to strengthen my fight. I fill my life with knowledge to set yours alight. Ignite everyone involved until they're burning bright. 'Cause I, for one, am sick of trying to be polite. Deep breath, take aim, and shoot on sight. I know there must be only one left standing tonight. Then the four corners of my universe can reunite. Light will return, welcomed by my heart's delight. I wrap it up in cotton wool and hold on tight, absorbing all the wrongs and trying to make them right. I'm aware I'm not the one who should be feeling contrite, so there's my dirty slate, you can give it a wipe. This colorful world is gray, not black and white, and I don't deserve this trait. Put that in your pipe. Thank you, thank you. This is the last piece that I'm doing. It's called Invasion from Underground. Thank you, Writing on Air, for inviting me onto the show, the great debate. I've already done a couple of things, but already had a great time. And find me at Facebook, Instagram, and all them things, D3 Creations. Don't just scratch my surface, let my skin divide, pierce through layers into the core inside. Deep, this ain't a prayer, it's my life's design. Hope you're prepared for what's released. Now I'm alive, a lasting flow forever beating till the day I die. Don't try to undermine my mind in front of my eye, cause in subconscious eruption blown up into the sky, leaving lava burning but keeping my fire bright, oozing through oceans, infecting rivers worldwide, feeding vegetation, H2O adapted, refined, unmistakable articulation on the grapevine, running with the currents, controlling the tide and time. Heat causes my evaporation up to the clouds. Brought on its intense mental pain is making me frown. Repulse of torrential rain falls into the ground, and drenching all terrain until no dry patch is found. You just make me stronger, trying to break me down. Gloves are on, whistles gone, ready for this round. Throw some blows, I'll take 'em. but you can't knock me out. Taking place is an invasion from underground. Till all you hear is the sound of me calling from the sea. As the wind blows inland, weaving through the trees, leaves, speaking my name in the caressing breeze, making you realize I was disguised as a human being. I am in every element existing here on this earth. I am relevant, been etching my way in here since birth. Intelligent, independent, I hear that they're the worst. Though I'm interesting because I've been glued up first. Contaminating, I be climbing up the side of your house. I will inject myself in your foundation quite as a mouse. No compensation when contagious plagues conquer throughout. You find me nesting in food you've always been crazy about. Feel me digesting, leaving delectable taste in your mouth. Feeding a hunger, quenching your thirst in a drought. Though hydration's no salvation, now you can't go without. And protesting ineffectual without any doubt. Cause you just make me stronger, trying to break me down. Gloves are on, whistles gone. Ready for this round, throw some blows, I'll take them. But you can't knock me out. Taking place is an invasion from underground. If I dissected you in two pieces somewhere in the dark, I would detect a little bit of this rebound in your heart. Full-blown effects of integral control without leaving scars. I expect you to accept exceptional superstar. Please show me some respect and we can flow through some bars. Have intellectual conversations, walking in parks instead of intentionally trying to tear me apart. Remember, I am there beside you wherever you are. This occasion I am able to just let it slide. Mind will take it in though and make me wise. I never came here to make waves, that's by the by. I repay all shadiness by loving my life. For motivated entertainment for all mankind. Since your game is putting pain up to disguise your life. No game for makeup on your face. I see through to life, leaving me capable of taking you down, both hands tied. Whistle's gone, ready for this round. Blows and belows, I'll take her. But you can't knock me out. Taking place is an invasion from underground. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the show. Don't forget to hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, D3. I think on Instagram I'm called This Is D3UK. I'm sure I changed my name not so long ago, but you can check it out. A little adventure for you. Thank you, guys.
And we're going to go to some music or straight into the next? Either way. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of music, and then we're going to bring you into the world of the great debate. First, a little music. D3, someone who makes things happen around Chapel FM, radio host, activist, person about town. So now for the next 45 minutes, we're going to take you into the world of a great debate that we hope someday will happen in this magical space. Now, for anyone listening at home on the radio who has never had the pleasure of being here on Chapel FM, maybe you're listening from far across the world. The space that we occupy in this old 1874 Methodist chapel in the heart of Seacroft in East Leeds is a unique space in many levels. It has radio studios downstairs, a brand new cafe, a big hall, and upstairs, where I'm now talking to you from over the airwaves, what we call the Radio Theater, which is the upper floor of the old Methodist chapel where the balconies would have been. So there's pews all around me here, wonderful wooden pews that are now 100, almost 150 years old, an amazing stained glass window off in the distance behind the tech booth that actually has radio waves built into it, so it's a mix of old and new. And behind me, a beautiful organ, it still works. And it's all a space in the round, 360 degrees seating. In a way, a little bit like, we've always felt it looks a little bit like a little version of a parliament, that it has that kind of ability to sort of create conversation across a room. And one of the things that we've thought about for a number of years here at Chapel FM is, can we find some way to use both this really unique space, this architecture that we're so lucky to have, this technology tool that we have, the microphone in my hand, the radio station that we run that can beam voices out across long distances, and the fact that we're deeply embedded, rooted in this community of Seacroft and wider East Leeds, to maybe find some different ways of having debates. So Elliot Moon in a moment is going to play a little video clip behind me. So I'm going to describe for listeners at home. I think we're going to turn the sound off. And actually, John, if you want to join me, we can just, between us, describe a bit what we're seeing here first. This is only about a minute or so long. I'll narrate, but you can narrate too, just for listeners who can't see these pictures. So go ahead and press play, Elliot, and then we'll explain why we're doing this. So what are you seeing, John?
It's an animal parliament. There's a ram at the dispatch box, foxes, ostriches, monkeys, hyenas.
A bunch of hyenas, yeah. There's sheep going off to their side. There's a dog spinning in circles outside of Parliament now.
Radio interview outside Parliament.
Some buzzards.
Vultures, rats. There's now a
snake slithering along. And then finally, and then we get something going on here. All the animals are gaping.
It's a unicorn.
Yeah.
A unicorn and a lion.
And then it pauses. Okay. And then it says, politics tamed, the Times, Sunday Times. Now, it would be lovely to fill our little Parliament space with a bunch of wild animals, but that's not going to be our plan. That's not what we're thinking of. But I do find that interesting. And anybody else, we've got roving microphones, so if anybody else, I'm going to throw out questions occasionally, so anyone is welcome to jump in. And John, you can jump in with thoughts. But I'm just curious, I'm just going to go to James just to ask you, does that vision of it's conjuring up some kind of debate in that video that we just saw, all these animals in Parliament clearly, and then what was the unicorn and the lion come in, which invokes all kinds of British English mythology, and the august Times is there to tame the wild, untamed Parliament and bring some kind of majesty and order and tradition to it or something like that. Does that, you don't need to say a long answer, but just curiously, does that vision of a debate, does the way that they're conveying debate, does it give you any particular emotions?
Yeah, it seems very relevant. It reminds me of a similar one that I saw with the Green Party. Let's have grown-up politics instead of shouting on this side, shouting on that side. You're the political leaders. You're the grown-ups in the room. Act like it.
Yeah. Okay. So does any other thoughts, John? If anything comes to any reactions to that, or David, feel free to jump in. But as someone who is involved in politics itself, I guess debating is not something that figures as much, or would you say that it does in your world? And how's your feelings in debating?
I mean, most of my world as a councillor is debates at the council chamber, which are the most, I shouldn't really say it, but 6 hours of dire waiting for the end, really, because it's all programmed, so you're given 3 minutes to speak, and there's no debate. It's just you speak, and then the other opposition speak, and they make as many nasty remarks as they possibly can, and then we all go home. But after 6 hours of sitting on fairly uncomfortable seats, it's not something I look forward to every 6 weeks. So sadly, and I think it's a lot of politics is a charade like that. The Parliament is a charade. If you watch it on television, it's all programmed, and very rarely, apart from when you have people like Dennis Skinner or some really good speakers who are maybe bring a bit of humour to the situation, but also a bit of the reality. And it's so far away from like the estates in Seacroft.
Yeah. No, that's really helpful.
I would think
to know.
that most people in Seacroft wouldn't watch Parliament.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well. Well, Elliot, as we're talking here, if you can bring up the next slide, which is going to be that list of about 20 different topics. So one of the things that we're interested in and we're thinking about, and this is just a provocation to put out into the airwaves and for those of us here in the room, is there a way, particularly, and so much of what we think about here at Chapel FM is working especially with teenagers. We work with all ages, but teenagers are certainly an important part of what we do here, particularly with radio and community and storytelling and so forth. And in our conversations with them about their views of things like debates and discussions and just the democratic process, some of what you were saying, David, is very much mirrored by that it's seen as something a bit performed, a bit insincere, not always resulting in interesting consequences and so forth. And so one of our interests, because we mix radio, journalism, and things like theater and the arts, is to ask the question is there some potential in the year to come or the years to come to use this space that we're in to create maybe not a real debate, but a kind of a theatrical interpretation of a debate, a kind of a performance of a debate. And maybe not about necessarily always serious things, because in the end what we're interested in, especially in using this space, is are there ways to get people to think differently about what's possible in terms of having a debate, using a space, who has the power, who makes the decision, who gets to speak when, how the decisions get made, and how it gets shared, and particularly, and that's something we're interested in, how it can get shared with the outside world, with the wider community. So to that end, we've got three small parts to this radio broadcast. First, behind me now, we've got a list of, I think there's about 15 or so things. It says, let's have a debate. And John, if you want to, or if anybody else wants to, take turns with me reading them out loud for our radio audience at home, since they can't see what's up on the screen here. So let's just go through these, and then I'm going to just explain a little bit about what this list might be about and how it might be used. So we can take turns on these. So what's up there at first? So it says, let's have a debate.
Should we knock down the giant Tesco and rebuild something more like the old Seacroft Centre?
Okay. And for anyone who's not from Seacroft and doesn't know, what the old Seacroft, I guess it's the Civic Center would be the proper name for it, right? The 1960s structure. We could have a whole long tangent discussion about that, but we'll just let that be for now. It's just a topic there. Number two, we have, should we create an independent local currency just for Seacroft? Okay. Number three.
Should we make Seacroft into the video game voiceover capital of the UK?
Yeah. All right. That's an interesting one. Okay. Number four. Should we build a subway that runs direct from Seacroft to Leeds city centre?
Should we declare Seacroft's independence from the rest of Leeds?
Okay. Should we turn the Seacroft village green into a blank, and it's left open what that blank could be, into something else? Okay, next one. I've lost track of the numbers.
Should we make it illegal to blank in Seacroft?
Okay. Yes?
Ride motorcycles.
To ride, okay, so we have, David Jenkins says, we have a suggestion for that one. Should we make it illegal to ride motorcycles in Seacroft? Okay, great. Next one here. Shh. Is that your turn or my turn? I've lost track of whose turn it is.
Should we construct a museum about blank in Seacroft?
Blank in Seacroft. So I think I know somebody who would have a great suggestion for what kind of museum. James, what kind of museum would you like to see constructed in Seacroft?
Why not the history of electric vehicles?
Okay, the history of electric vehicles, electric transportation in Seacroft, making Seacroft a destination for green electric technology aficionados from all across the UK and the world. Okay, next one up. Is that your turn or my turn now? It's me. I keep losing track. Should we make the blank the official animal of Seacroft and celebrate it with an annual festival? Okay, over to John.
Should we rename Seacroft? If so, what should we call it?
Okay, next up. Should we build more or should we build fewer houses in Seacroft? Either way, okay.
Should we try to make Seacroft famous for a specific sport? If so, which sport?
Should we build a giant sculpture next to the village green? And if so, a sculpture of what?
Should we have a lot more police in Seacroft or a lot fewer police?
Should we try to get more immigrants to move to Seacroft?
Should we do more to preserve the history and traditions of Seacroft? And what does that mean?
Okay. Should we completely redo the ways that schools work in Seacroft? And then we've just got a should we blank, 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 dot, 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 ellipsis going across the way there. So these are 15 or so different topics, and I just want to leave a little room for some speculation, and anybody can jump in, or I'll share some thoughts on this. But first, I'm just curious, if you think of, imagine this space that we're in now, the Chapel FM Radio Theater, that can fit, when it's really packed, it can fit 110 or so people, right, all around the room here. And we're going to really focus in, I'm just going to describe for listeners at home, because this is about us conjuring up and trying to imagine. Imagine this is 6 months from now, and what'll be 6 months from now? It'll be April or so, April, May, March of 2022, and this room is filled to the brim with people, especially young people. And we've got a big group in the seats where James Lewis Moran is in front of Elliot, the big section in front of the stained glass. That's section 1. Over here to my right, where John and David and D3 are, we've got a smaller section of a couple of pews over there. Over on this side, we've got Tess, is that right? Bess, Tess. Very small section over there, so we've just got room for about 8 or so people. And then back in front of the organ, we've got kind of the fancy seats in the back where the speaker person might live or something like that. And I just want to imagine, these are things that we've talked about, that we've at this group, and it's all mostly teenagers, maybe there's a few people of other generations in here as well. And in each of those sections, there's a different party that's taken, we've got one of those topics. We'll go back to the topics in a moment, so keep them up on the screen, Elliot. And the factions here, they've decided they're parties, and they have strong positions on one of these topics. So they've come in, and they've prepared a little bit as well. And we've got different sizes as well. So where James is, we've got a big party there. They've got the majority. We've got a medium-sized constituency over here to the right where John and David are, a smaller party here. And then maybe I'm just speculating, because part of what we're doing is trying to just paint a picture. And in back of me, and maybe it is more of it's the people controlling maybe it's the press back there, in fact. We decided behind us there's the media. So we have people pretending to be from different newspaper and a radio station, and they've got cameras and microphones, and they're recording the debate as well. But it's also being broadcast on the radio out to the wider world. So imagining this situation, I'm just curious, and I'm just going to get people's thoughts on it. Looking at these list of debate topics, is there a topic that you, as a member of the public, would be most excited to attend this debate about? And I'm just curious if there's a few people have things, and I'm just curious why you're drawn to a particular topic. So we got a suggestion from James.
So yes, should we make blank the official animal of Seacroft and celebrate it with an annual festival? Well, at this point, the red kite is such the animal. Okay.
So just imagining that moment. So we got this debate now, and again, we're imagining, is it a real debate? Is it a kind of a theatrical, played-up debate? And that's an interesting thing in itself. But in some ways, we're more interested in getting a room full of, again, especially young people, to have a heated and passionate debate. And we've got a special guest here coming in, which I'm going to bring down in a moment here. So in perfectly timed. So Richard, want to come down and join us? And we're going to give you a recap of what we were talking about, and then get your opinions on it. So. Sorry to throw you into, so this is, again, part of the Writing on Air Festival. Peter probably explained, this is a topic called The Great Debate. We're not actually having a debate right now, but we're actually imagining a possible future debate that could happen specifically in this space, and as a way to get young people, especially, anybody in the community, but especially young people, thinking differently about why debate, political discourse, can actually be a productive thing, as opposed to, sometimes I think the view is often that debates are staged for the media, and they don't often lead to interesting results and so forth. Yeah, and I'm going to pass over a mic for you as well, so you've got that. But first,
thank you.
As part of getting, and we just have you join the discussion and ask your opinions on some things, and having just come back from the Labour Party conference as well down in Brighton, it'd be interesting to see also thoughts on that debate in comparison to the debates that happen in Parliament. But first, I'm interested, because this is all about participation. Does anybody, whether John or anybody else, want to try to summarize a bit of what we've been talked about so far? And we've got this list behind us as well, which you might want to turn just slightly so we can share that with you. But yeah, so what we're imagining, if we were to take this unique space and fill it with young people, and we've got this list of possible topics that could make for interesting debates. So I'm just going to recap some of them for our listening at home audience. They're topics that in some ways might be very serious, in other ways are even slightly absurd in some cases. In other instances, could go either way. And imagining encouraging several factions of young people to say that they're going to take sides and positions on one of these topics or some other topic along these lines. And using this space, using the fact that this is also a radio studio, enact a debate, and in some ways create the rituals to broadcast out to the wider world. Not necessarily with, we might find a brilliant idea out of it. We certainly won't necessarily be in a position to change the world immediately through the debate, but to actually just get people thinking differently about the nature of debate and how maybe debate can change from being seen as something that's simply frustrating or performed for a base, instead something that becomes, generates new ideas and maybe even humor and pulls on artistic ideas as well. So with that said, I just want to ask you just a little bit about your experience debating, and it might feed into our thinking about this space as a kind of debate theater or a way to think differently about debates and discussions. And it's open to the floor too, so anybody else can, if you have a follow-up question, just give a raise and I'll bring the microphone over and you can ask on it. So I guess the first question on that front was, before you became a member of Parliament, was debate something that was part of your life in one way or another?
Yeah, when I was at school at Cardinal Heenan High School in Meanwood, I was kind of member of the debating society in the school, and so that was fun, debating a whole range of topics. And I was a member of the school's public speaking team as well. Little did I realise then that it would be as big a part of my life as it is now.
Yeah. And debate at that point, when you were maybe 14, 15 years old, starting to do that, what was it about it that excited you or drew you to it?
Well, I just like the, as someone that's always been very interested in literature, I like the power of language and how language can be used and the way that words are delivered as well to impact upon people, change their mind. I like the craft of debate and the craft of public speaking. I find it interesting. So when I was growing up, I liked to watch people doing speeches, like to watch people debating. I just found it interesting.
Yeah.
So there's two aspects to debate that are interesting, really. Obviously, the subject that's being debated, but also the techniques that are used in the debate. And so one, I suppose, is a form of art, almost a bit like theatre, I suppose.
Yeah. Which is something that we're quite interested in thinking about that as a performance, not in the sense that it's insincere or fake, but just in the sense that if you have that platform, how do you want to use it?
And that's why in debating societies at universities and things, and I suppose in a way with this list here, people sometimes in debating societies end up having to debate for or against a position that isn't their position.
Yeah.
Some MPs even get to speak in such a way. I don't, but obviously, people take lines, don't they? And one of the interesting things in debating societies or debating clubs is, how is it going to operate? Is it going to operate in a way whereby you only speak in favour of your own position or against positions you disagree with? Or do you allot different positions and the fun is trying to create an argument for or against a proposition which isn't necessarily one that you would normally take?
Yeah. I have another question, and then I'm going to open it up if anybody else has questions, because I want to give that space for that. So jumping from your time as a debater when you were yourself, say, a teenager, and doing it as something that was pleasurable, interesting, a way of exploring ideas, to the experience of being in the room, say, in Parliament when a debate is happening. And we could we could probably talk all night about some of those experiences, but just in a nutshell, how would you say that experience was different, especially the first time that you were in that kind of space, and then maybe over time has your view on it changed?
Well, obviously the pomposity of Parliament comes across as soon as you step in there. Eventually you get used to it, but the pomposity, the archaic rules, but also there's a great artifice or fiction in Parliament, isn't there? The idea that you've got hundreds of people with an open mind listening to the debate and they're just thinking, how am I going to vote at the end of this debate? That's going to depend on what the next speaker says. Obviously, the vast majority of MPs know how they're going to vote already, and really the speeches are an attempt to put different positions on record and to put your constituents' interests or constituents' perspectives or your perspective on record. But obviously there's this theatre that somehow each vote in Parliament, the outcome of it depends upon the quality of the speeches. And now, of course, usually that's not the case. Sometimes it is, of course, sometimes it is. Particularly when it comes to votes in relation to military intervention, for example. The content of the speeches in that kind of scenario can make a big difference, where people are really umming and ahhing about the way they'll vote. But in most votes, that's not the case, I'm afraid.
So before I go ahead, if anybody does have a question they want to ask Richard, this is a good moment for that. So we're going to pass it over to John Tudor.
Following on from what you said, I watched about 3 years of Brexit debate in Parliament, and we know what happened in the end, and that was based on the size of the majority. So do you think that was 3 years wasted?
I think actually that if we're talking about how debates work, Brexit is actually, although the debates and the votes and the parliamentary procedures seemed quite frustrating and kind of political chicanery to a lot of people, I think that is a good example of where the outcomes of the votes did depend on the debates, because there were plenty of MPs from all sides rebelling against their party line in those Brexit debates. And obviously the outcome of those votes was often so close that changing one MP's mind or two MP's minds out of 650 could change the outcome of the vote, because the votes were very close. So I think that's actually an example of where the debates, as frustrating as many people will have found them, actually did have an impact upon the outcome and an impact upon the government's and the country's and Parliament's position in relation to Brexit.
And that's a great, I mean, in some ways that's a really heartening example, because, having thought about all the times in which debates have, the outcomes are foregone conclusions, that it's about performing for people at home or the media, but the fact that there are those moments. So a big question I have, and I'll leave a space if there's a few more questions, is if you could imagine sort of with a magically somehow changing something about the nature of the debates that you get to be part of in Parliament, or I suppose other places, is there anything that would, just in your wildest dreams, if you could say, if a debate could only work this way, or if this could happen in a debate, or if I could change the rules of the debating structure, it would make it exciting, important, it would allow for maybe a genuine new idea to emerge. Is there anything along those lines?
Well, I think one of the strange things in Parliament is that you're not allowed to address the person that you're speaking about or debating with, so you have to go through the speaker. So if I say you, I wouldn't be referring to Tony as you, it would be the chair or the speaker. And that means, it's meant to keep people polite, but that means there's a strange distance. I mean, the first thing I'd change about Parliament, if I had the power to do so, would have it in a different building. I think the old-fashioned palace that it's in, I think makes MPs, makes it more likely MPs will be full of themselves. It creates a kind of pomposity to it. And I think it makes it seem that politics and debate is for the select few, not for everyone. Because we want as many people across the country and in our communities debating about issues that are important to them. Politics shouldn't be seen as a rarefied pursuit only for the people in Parliament. Politics shouldn't be just done by MPs. Politics should be for everyone. So if it was a clean slate, I'd change the building so it was modern, and I'd change the way that you address other MPs, and also this false politeness, where you have to call people honourable gentlemen. Can't call somebody a liar, and you get in trouble for calling somebody a liar even if they've lied, but they don't get in trouble for telling a lie. It's all very old-fashioned.
Yeah. No, those are really great examples, and coming from the point of view of someone who's moved here from Chicago a few years ago, having watched Parliament much more closely over the last few years, a number of those things that not addressing people directly, for example, is something that was really new and novel and fascinating to understand.
And the other strange thing, which is bad on the knees, if you've got bad knees, is in order to speak, you have to stand up each time. So you can be in there for 6 hours. I'm not moaning about the physical, the physical problems of being an MP, but each time you want to speak, you have to catch the chair's eye, catch a speaker's eye. And so every time someone else has finished, you stand up. And you can be doing this every few minutes for up to 6 hours. And so that's why MPs maybe they've got muscly legs. I don't know. I don't have muscly legs.
There's a whole theory behind
it. But it's all that's silly, isn't it? And an MP has a lot of work to do if they're doing the job properly. And whilst debates are fascinating, sitting in there for 6 to 8 hours and then not being picked to speak is pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
When you could have been doing plenty of other valuable work.
Yeah. Which
But
is
I mean,
also
Parliament
really
kind of
interesting,
started
yeah.
as a gentleman's debating club, didn't it, really?
Yeah. And there's even which that raises a really interesting question too, is the time spent debating, which seems like this exercise of democracy. Is it sometimes, in fact, actually an obstacle? Well, one of the things we've got about 15 minutes, I think, left, and I know that you're getting ready to go down to a meeting. So if you need to leave, or if you're able to stay for a bit longer, that's great. But what we'd like to do in these last 15 minutes or so is I'm going to put out some ideas about, because something we very much want to do here at Chapel FM is turn this space into a kind of debate theater, but really emphasizing the theater to some degree. And so you were talking about some of these protocols and rules, and maybe with the young people even invent a kind of a whole structure, maybe a completely new one, an absurd one, to say, well, what if this was the rule and this had to happen first, and et cetera? What would the outcome be? So on the list that disappeared again, we were looking through the list of different items. I'm actually curious if, Ellie, can you bring it back really quickly? Just for the sake of this discussion, we're going to just pick one of these and kind of dive a little more deeply into it. And I'm going to try to imagine that moment. Well, I guess, James, you were a big fan of, okay, so I think one of the items on the list was, do you remember the exact wording of the debate topic?
Where is it? So many things. Lost it. Should we try to make Seacroft famous for a specific sport? If so, what sport? Now, one particular sport comes to mind, and it's one we actually won gold medals in, BMX. We have a BMX pump track. There is another one coming. Just saying.
Okay, so you changed the question. That's a good one, though. That's an interesting one. And just thinking about even a question like that, which might seem like a fairly frivolous question, right? Okay, which sport is it? Is it BMX? Is it boxing? Is it football? Is it this? Is it that? I mean, one of the things, and that's would be to try to understand, what are all the kinds of dynamics and forces and who's represented underneath that, and what does that say about the place? Richard, I'm curious if you scanning that list, is there a debate topic that particularly jumps out at you? And again, some are relatively serious, some are a bit on the absurd side.
But there's so many interesting questions there, aren't there? Should we declare Seacroft's independence from the rest of Leeds?
Yes.
That's funny. Should we make it illegal too, and then
and
put in your own crime
which
in
itself would be
Seacroft?
interesting. Yeah.
Should we rename Seacroft? Should we build more or fewer houses in Seacroft? It's all fascinating stuff. I mean, when we talk about building more or fewer houses in Seacroft, that leads to an interesting discussion about the type of houses, both whether they're council houses or private houses, whether they're truly affordable houses or unaffordable houses, whether they're houses that are made to do their bits in relation to tackling climate change, for example.
Yeah.
Existing houses, retrofitting them to make them more energy efficient to help with the kind of struggle against climate change. So it raises all sorts of issues, doesn't it? Interesting issues.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of even the issue of the renaming Seacroft, for example, right? I mean, because that is then as soon as it gets to discussion of if it was to be renamed. I mean, I love the name Seacroft. I think it has a real poetry to it. But of course, that speaks volumes potentially about how people want to see Seacroft and what the identity might be. So I'm going to just throw out a few ideas, and then in the last 10 minutes about, on the very practical kind of physical level of using this space if there was to be a debate. And let's take it may not matter, but let's take the idea of if we were to rename Seacroft and imagine that we've got, 3 factions that come in that at least initially are sort of working together. So maybe there's a larger group up there. They have a majority. They've got a bit of room to intimidate the others. We've got a medium-sized party over to the right there where David Jenkins and John are. We've got a smaller party here. Imagining maybe we have some young people behind us that are playing the role of the media. So we've got somebody with a TV camera, and they're taking dictation and recording, and they can use their body language and facial expressions and to be part of it. and maybe there's a speaker, maybe someone playing the organ. We've got an organ, why not use it? There's not one in actual parliament, but maybe in our imaginary parliament. We've got an organ player who has the power to just jump in and play improvised music at unexpected moments to influence the debate. And I'm just going to put a few ideas out, and really this then is open for reactions or other ideas people can imagine, because we're trying to just conjure this up. So one idea is, well, of course, with any debate, right, there's a question of what the results are, what actually happens, how does a decision get made or not get made. And one idea, because radio is a big part of what we do, is to imagine, for instance, if it's not about the members in the room actually making the vote, but if there's a public somewhere that's going to make a decision. And where's the public? Who's the public? Well, because we're a radio station, we've got speakers throughout the building. It could be that they're way downstairs in the back in the little radio studio. There's 3 teenagers, 3 young people sitting in there, and they're listening to everything that happens in this room. We can't see them in the room, but they're the ones that are ultimately going to get to make the decision based on how persuasive the groups are. So suddenly we've got this interesting challenge that we've got to be. Everything that goes on in the room is about persuading an audience that we can't see. We don't know how they're reacting. They might be agreeing, laughing. We've got to guess, right? Maybe only Elliot Moon back there has the ability to talk to the public down below, so he can occasionally filter in a question from that public that's going to decide what name Seacroft should be instead. Maybe one party wants to keep it Seacroft, this party has a name that wants to encourage gentrification, and this party has a name that wants to celebrate its proud left-leaning labor history, and they want to name it after...
David Jenkins.
David Jenkins.
It could be called Jenkinsville.
Jenkinsville, yeah. Luddite town,
yeah.
You know, right? Something they've got. So we've got this debate going on, but we're experimenting with the idea that the decision is being made by people that we can't see, but they're the real public, and they have this power, and they maybe have some criteria. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions on this? Again, this is just now about imagining, and again, these are things that we may actually enact in some time in the coming years. So no idea is too absurd to consider, and no idea is too specific to mention. James.
Well, I was just going to say, in regards to renaming Seacroft, it has a duality to its name, Croft being land, stable, strong, strong and stable. And then you have sea, the fluid nature, the poetry nature of Seacroft. They go together.
All right, well, James is ready to become the leader of the Keep the Name Seacroft party in the debate. No, it's good. That's good.
Very persuasive, I think.
Yeah, that's you've got it going there. So was there another thought? Yeah, John.
Well, if you're going for gentrification, we could have Seacroft, I suppose. Just to make it a bit more French, maybe, I don't know. But and as James was saying, Seacroft as a word is in the Doomsday Book, 1066, and one of the interpretations of the word is for the word pool. And we think that's where Seacroft Hall was, that there was a very large lake, historically. So maybe New Blackpool. Or Old Blackpool.
Nice. That's good. All right. Anything else on on the idea of the space then as well, sort of, or the procedure of the debate, or a question that people have?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that people... would this name change, or the retention of the name be decided by way of a referendum, or would it be elected representatives deciding it? Because that's an interesting question, isn't it? How are debates determine the outcome? Is it by elections from people who are elected representatives from the community, or is it the community itself through a referendum? Would everybody in Seacroft get a vote on this matter? Would it just be James and other people who've been elected by the local people to decide?
Yeah. I mean, I could even imagine a situation where we have that debate and we actually do the results both ways and see if they're the same. So one is the parliamentarians, the members of parliament up here at the end vote on it, and then the other scenario is that there's a referendum, which means that public, which maybe are people listening downstairs in the cafe, they at the end of the debate vote on it. And it might be quite interesting to see. It might be that the group up here, the elected officials, come to a different conclusion than the group downstairs. That's the public who's listening in and being persuaded one way or the other.
And who would decide on the different options on the ballot paper?
Yeah.
Whether it's 2 options or whether there's a third option. I mean, we've had these debates in relation to the EU referendum, but also in relation to Scottish independence as well. Some people are arguing there should be 3 options on the ballot paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, that decision as well, which might be that it's about having the young people planning the debate, in advance, realizing how much the outcome gets determined by the structure that gets put in place way in advance of the debate. I think is potentially a really interesting thing to document, because one idea is to, enact this debate, let's say, record it, broadcast it, but then also go back afterwards and have the people who took part in it reflect on it. So it could be that it actually turns into a kind of a radio documentary about, the young people thinking through this process. Yeah, James, you had one.
I was just going to say about the whole future of debates and voting. Will it be digital to save on paper waste, for instance? Do you even have to visit a voting booth? Those kind of questions about the future are important.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess just that question about, is the way that the debate is being held, which could be an interesting thing in the actual debate that happens in here. Yeah. So another question, which I'll just put out there, and if anyone has a thought on it, or I'll respond myself, or Richard, is, again, because we're a place that spends a lot of time thinking about the arts and getting young people especially to think about the arts, whether it's music or writing or theater, sometimes other arts as well. And I just wonder, and this is again a question about that, and someone may have, or we can just let it float out into the airwaves and people can think about it in the meantime, is there a way to bring the arts into a debate in some way that might result in more thoughtful, meaningful, subtle outcomes in some way? And does anybody have any reflections on that? I mean, the one example I had, which is that at periodic breaks we have an organ player who plays some kind of magnificent music on the organ. Maybe it has nothing to do with the debate, it's just there to get everyone to take a few minutes to stop and reflect before going back into the debate, and perhaps somebody who had a building contractor had convinced them to vote one way, in that moment of hearing some great music suddenly says to themselves, oh, the hell with it, I'm not going to vote that way, I'm going to change my mind. But any other thoughts on whether the arts could somehow be brought into this debate space in a way that could be useful or interesting?
Well, the clue's in the name, art. Political poetry, political artwork, those things have a certain sway.
Okay.
That's a very interesting point, actually, because obviously some people have paid a lot of money to produce images, advertisements that do exactly what James is saying, and try and influence how people vote in an election or vote in a referendum. And I think sometimes people miss the importance of emotion in a debate.
Yeah.
And all advertising, whether it's for products or one political position or another in a debate, it is art of a form, isn't it? So that's a really interesting point. And, they pick stirring music, sad music, to illustrate the points. And it's matching it up, isn't it? Because if you're going to do a political video talking about the number of people across the country, number of children that need free school meals who are going hungry, you're not going to have happy music on in the background, are you? That would be strange. It's going to be sad, somber music, piano music.
Yeah.
So it's really an interesting topic.
Yeah. I mean, it might even be something as simple as, who gets to decide what music is playing downstairs where the public is listening before and after the debate, and can that be somehow used to sway people in some way or another? Yeah.
I mean, one of the problems about Seacroft is that it's a bit divided because of like North Seacroft and South Seacroft. And the one times when people get together is like the Christmas festival or the summer galas and things like that. And we could have a music gala that maybe Chapel could produce.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. Okay, we're coming close to the end of our broadcast period, because what we're going to be happening, and this is for radio listeners at home, we're just going to have a few closing thoughts, but this is coming to the end of day 1 of the Writing on Air Festival. So in just a bit, we'll be going downstairs. We're going to be inaugurating the new community library, Burke's Books, which is named after Helen Burke, who was a beloved poet who spent lots of time at Chapel FM and sadly died last year. So there's going to be a tribute to Helen. If you're listening at home on the radio, and you can make it to Chapel FM in the coming days and weeks. You can visit Burke's Books, the little bookstore library downstairs. And then we're going to be going off into the evening. But we have a full day of broadcasts tomorrow starting at, I believe, 10 a.m. till 11 p.m. tomorrow night, and another full day on Sunday. Plus, we've got a whole other week of our Good to Go opening festival happening next week as well. So coming to the end, I just want to, if there's any last thoughts on the debate, but again, we're thinking hard about the possibility of really trying to bring an experimental debate to life, maybe around a topic like one of these. Again, maybe absurd, something that people can come and observe, but young people can learn from. And then we're going to go out with a bit of music, but just to go around if anybody has a thought or a question or just something to put out there for radio listeners as well to think about.
Yeah, just two things. Demos, democracy, it's about getting people together in the room, so more events here, the better. You know, just put a topic out there and invite people and do it every week, and they'll come. And for the record, although the question is, one to stimulate debate, Seacroft is the perfect name for this area. It's a proud name with a very proud history of thousands of years. It does not need renaming.
Good case made for that. Yeah, I would not want to see Seacroft's name changed as well. Yeah, James.
And speaking of the history of Seacroft, should we do more to preserve the history and traditions of Seacroft? What are those? I found a piece of Seacroft's history on eBay the other day. Apparently, we had a cycling race before the Tour de France in the 1970s, and I found the banner and I bought it.
Ah, brilliant. Well,
wow, that's great, isn't it?
Really
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to come in with, when you're having the debates in the future, obviously one of the things people talk about when they look at the debates in Parliament is the Parliament representative enough, you know, in terms of men, women, in terms of people from different economic backgrounds, are there enough working class people getting to share their thoughts and their voice, people from black and minority ethnic communities, people who are born in this country, people who are born in other countries, people from different occupations and people who are disabled. All of these things go into ensuring the debate reflects the kind of range of opinions and experiences in the community. So I'm sure that when this debate takes place, you'll be thinking of ways to ensure that different perspectives are brought to the table.
Yes, no, that's a great point as well. And the theme of this whole festival, this Writing on Air Festival, is vision, and that's one of the reasons why we chose this topic, to kind of envision a different kind of debate. So it's been great having those of you here in the radio studio with us today, chatting about these ideas, and hopefully listeners out at home as well, and just helping us reflect a little bit and think about the possibilities ahead. So to close, to go out, Elliot, I'll give you a little time to cue it up. We've just got a bit of music that we'll play. For those of us in the studio, we'll see the video. It's the Willie Dixon, Don't Make Sense. I think it's the fifth track. We skipped a couple of tracks because we're having too much fun talking. It was good. But just to close with, though, as we go, so for listeners at home and for people in the studio, we chose this particular clip. Willie Dixon was an old blues singer, and kind of one of the unsung heroes of blues. He's not nearly as famous as some others, but he wrote a lot of the most famous blues songs, and particularly political blues music, which blues people don't always think of as being obviously political. But we're playing this to end with, just to think about this idea of the power of art. And yeah, that's good. Cue it up partway through if you want. And it's a song written during the Vietnam War, and just, I think to me it captures a way of that an artist can bring some tools towards the debate process. He's not actually having a debate, but in a way he is with his audience or with the wider world, using rhetoric, using pauses, using his voice, and using music. So this to me is a good example of a musical debate. So with that, you're listening to East Leeds FM, the Writing on Air Festival, and this has been our discussion about imagining the visions for the great debate. Thank you, Richard Bergen, MP from East Leeds.
My pleasure.
And for our great studio audience for joining us. So here we go.